Our guest for today is Jim. Jim
Yes.
Paulk. I hope I got your name correctly.
Yeah. You can just call me Jim if you want to.
Hi, Jim.
Hello.
Are you there?
Good.
Okay. So, Jim is a former U.S. Naval submarine officer, Procter and Gamble executive, marine conversation leader, and author, whose remarkable life has spanned military service, business, environmental advocacy, and storytelling. From serving beneath the ocean in submarines to leading major marine conservation initiatives, contributing to recreational fishing legislation, and writing about unforgettable real-life experiences. Jim has collected stories that are inspiring, humorous, and deeply human. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
All right, Jim, what inspired you to write this book, and why did you feel now was the right time to share these stories? Hi, Jim. Are you there?
I'm doing good. Okay. Just
Yes.
trying to understand. Oh, well, I've actually written 3 books now. And I, are you talking about How I Found Love, my most recent book?
All right.
Yeah, I wrote How I Found Love primarily because I wanted to develop relationships some, and of course, love is the ultimate relationship. And I wanted to deal with that some because all my life it's been about relationships and other people. And I've just always been interested in listening to other people, listening to their stories, talking about them and what they do. I don't spend a lot of time talking about myself, but I think relationships are the most important thing in the world. And I just wanted to develop that a little bit in this book. And I think a lot of the stories in the book are indicative of why relationships are so important.
All right, Jim, thank you so much. So, out of all the stories, which one is your personal favorite and why?
Let me just tell you a story that's called "Baby in a Basket," and it's it's my favorite story, and I'll tell you why. It's 1933 in the depths of the Great Depression, and a doctor and a nurse are delivering a baby in the foothills of Pine Mountain, which is one of the Appalachian chains, and the doctor tells Nurse Ann, "This baby will be stillborn. It is 2 months preemie, and the mother has been very ill, and the baby will not survive." So when the baby was delivered, he hands the baby to Nurse Ann and says, "Put the baby on the table over there. Now help me with the mother. We've got to save the mother. She's in very, very bad shape." And so Ann put the baby on the table and turned around and started helping the doctor. And in 1933, about the only appliance the doctor had was his stethoscope. He didn't have any other tools to use to save the mother. But they worked for 2 hours. But the mother eventually died. And the doctor said, "Ann, thank you for the help. You look exhausted. Why don't you go home and get some rest? It's been a very long day for you." And she turned around and she said, "Doctor, this baby is still alive." And the doctor says, "No, Ann, it can't be. It's 2 months preemie. It only weighs 2 or 3 pounds, and the lungs aren't developed. Just leave that baby on the table over there, and I'll take care of it." Ann said, "No, doctor, I'm taking this baby home." He says, "Ann, you don't want to do that because you're going to get attached to it and it's going to die and you're going to be devastated." But Ann picked up the baby, wrapped in a blanket, and she left the hospital with the baby. She had lived in a little cabin about 2 blocks away from the hospital with her sister, Sarah, and a father. And the only heat they had in the home was a wood-burning potbelly stove. And so Sarah and Ann chopped wood and kept that fire going 24 hours a day. They put the baby in a small tomato basket with a handle on it, wrapped in the blanket, and put the basket next to the stove. And they fed this baby every 2 hours around the clock with an eyedropper. And after about 6 weeks, the baby was responding and was still living and seemed to be making progress. At that point, the birth mother's sister, Martha Marie Douglas, came up from a coastal town and picked up the baby and took it home. She and her husband, Claude, had no children, but they loved this child and raised this child. And this child graduated from high school, went into the Navy, and served in the submarine force in New London, Connecticut, came back after his service, and became a successful businessman. Now, this love in this state is the agape love, which is love given in only one direction. It's given, but nothing is expected in return. So this is an unbelievable story. And when I asked the person to write the story for the book, I thought it would be about he and his wife, Patsy, because I thought they were a very close couple. But he sent this story. But he said, Jimmy, this story has been in my heart for over 80 years. And I wanted to recognize the people that basically brought me back from the dead and made me alive. And that's the story here. He is now 93 years old and doing okay.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So, what is the most heartbreaking or cruel story in the book?
Most heartbreaking story in the book. Well, let's see. I really don't have a heartbreaking breaking story. I have other kinds of stories in the book, but there's a diversity of book and stories in here of how people met. But I can tell you in my second book that I wrote, there are some heartbreaking stories in there. There's a story in there of a classmate of mine from Annapolis that was born in eastern Poland, and he was Jewish. And the Nazis loaded he and his sister and his mother and father in a boxcar and took them to Auschwitz, which was a Nazi death camp. And when they got off of the boxcars, they could smell the burning flesh from the ovens, and they knew they did not have much of a future. And in fact, he found out later that his mother and his sister were executed immediately. His father was sent to a work camp, and he did chores around Auschwitz camp until they were freed by American soldiers. And at that point, he and his father were still separated, and it was 2 years after World War II before they found one another, could get back together. And the name of that book is Shaking Up the World. Shaking Up the World because of the stories that are in that book. I had a classmate that was an architect of the GPS system, which we all take for granted nowadays. I had a classmate that was Apollo 16 and spent 3 days on the moon. I had a classmate that was an NFL official for 27 years and refereed 3 Super Bowls. So that's a pretty important book too. There are 80 stories in that book by 59 authors that submitted the stories. All proceeds, by the way, of my books go to charity. I get absolutely nothing. The royalties are contracted to charity from all 3 of my books. and I'm working on two other books right now.
Okay, Jim, that is actually a heartbreaking story, even though you may not consider it as heartbreaking. So, if Hollywood came calling, which story would best make?
A
If
movie?
Hollywood came calling, which story would make the
I
best movie?
there are several stories in this that book that would make a great story. But let me tell you one that I like. There's one in here. It was a hijacked airplane by Hezbollah terrorists. With a great story, and the one that I would tell you is about Walt Mukow was his name, and he was born in Shanghai, China, in 1933. His father was a retired Navy chief quartermaster. And if you remember history, the Japanese invaded northern China before we were even close to being in the war. And when the Japanese started moving south and the bombs started falling on Shanghai, the father said, "We got to get out of here." And they got on a ship and went to the Philippines, which was a big mistake because the Japanese were soon in the Philippines. But when they got to the Philippines, they were given a house. The father went to work for the Navy there, and they were told that if there was a bombing raid, they should run down the street to an old fort because that was their bomb shelter. And about a week or so after they arrived, the bombs started coming down. There was an air raid. They ran to the shelter. And after the raid was clear, they came back and their house had had a direct hit from a bomb and there was nothing left. They did not even have a change of clothes. Everything was gone. And when he went to work, the workplace had hit and there was nobody left alive at his workplace. So eventually, the American soldiers in the Philippines there surrendered to the Japanese. We were like 75,000 soldiers surrendered, and about 15,000 or so died on the Bataan Death March. And Walt and his family actually witnessed this death march, and they had a few food items that they shared with the soldiers because they were in so bad shape. And like I said, thousands of them died. And they were told that they should go and surrender to the Japanese as well. And they did. And when they surrendered, the Japanese thought that Walt's father was a spy. And so he was interrogated and challenged, but eventually they were placed into an internee camp, which is a civilian word for prisoner of war. So they were civilian prisoners of the Japanese. And during the war, they were moved back to two or three different camps, and every time they moved, there was less food. And Walt and his younger brother would sneak out of the camp under the fence and climb out in the jungle and go up trees and try and get fruit for them to eat so they could survive. But there was not a lot of food for them. At the end of the war, which is World War II, the U.S. Army heard that the Japanese planned to execute everyone in the camp because they had no more food to feed them, and so they were just going to kill them all. So at that point, they planned a raid, and American parachuters came in and coordinated with the Filipino guerrillas, and they killed the 75 Japanese guards. They put all the internees into an Amtrak, which is an amphibious vehicle that can run on land and water, and they ran back into the water with them and got them back behind U.S. lines. At that point, Walt was 13 years old and weighed 52 pounds. The family had almost starved to death. But that story would be an incredible movie because of all of the action. They were strafed by the Japanese several times, and just all of the activity in it. It would make an incredible movie.
Okay, Jim. So your book also touches on Apollo 16 and 3 days on the moon. What's the connection and why is that story so remarkable?
Okay. Oh, Charlie Duke spent 3 days on the moon, and it's important because it was 3 days. You remember the initial landing, somebody landed, and then somebody went and spent one day. The Apollo 13 Apollo was made into the movie with by Tom Hanks. You probably remember that, and it was important because there's several things they did. They had a rover, which was like a little electric car that was with them, and they could get in the car and they could actually traverse, go as far as 4 miles away from their lander, which is if the car broke down, that was the most they could walk with their spacesuit on, with a big oxygen generator and the cooling system they had on their back. They had this huge backpack that they had to wear, and so, but it never did break down. It worked well, and uh, one of the astronauts drove the car, and Charlie was actually on the phone, and he talked to NASA the whole time, telling them what he saw and what he was photographing. So NASA was getting a report as they went around the moon. And I'll tell you what made this story especially important to me was that I had asked my classmates to write their stories. And Charlie called me and he said, Jimmy, I don't want to write my story. He said, I want you to interview me and you write the story. And I'm thinking, boy, if I had to do that for 80 stories, that would be a load. But I said, okay. And I asked my 30-year-old granddaughter to come over, and we both listened on the phone to Charlie and we asked him questions, and both took a set of notes. So I had two sets of notes after we got done. I took those two sets of notes and wrote his story and sent it to Charlie, and then he embellished it, added a little bit to it, and that's how we made that story. He also sent me 20 photographs from NASA, and I picked 10 of them to put in the book. But that was so special because I got to do that with my granddaughter.
Okay, Jim, thank you so much. So, why did you decide to do the book with your granddaughter?
Okay.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah, I'm getting I'm getting it. I did it with my granddaughter because she's very smart. She had a photographic memory, and I knew that I wouldn't pick up all of his information, and that she would pick up some, and I would pick up some, and that's exactly what worked because her notes were not exactly like mine, but when I put them together, we came up with a pretty good story.
Okay, Jim. So I'm just curious, how old is your granddaughter?
Second.
Hi, Jim.
Melanie is she was 30 years old when she helped me out. I have I
Wow.
have three granddaughters, and she's the number two. She's my second oldest granddaughter.
Oh, wow. Crazy. So, moving on, what do you hope readers take away after finishing your book?
Okay. Well, I take away that my writing is not something I was very good at. I'll put it that way. But I decided that I did a first book of. I kind of got tricked into doing the first book about fishing stories, and after that, uh, I didn't plan to do any more. And then people asked me to do another book. And I decided to do a second book on the stories of my Naval Academy classmates because they were so awesome. The experiences were so wonderful. And I wanted to share their stories with the world. And and even though I'm not the greatest writer in the world, I think my writing has improved by doing the books. And I would encourage people to write things down and make a record for their families so they families have a legacy. I think that's kind of important because if you don't write them down by a second generation, it's all lost. So,
Okay, Jim, thank you so much. This has been a very, very exciting episode so far. Thank you, and I really appreciate you for coming. Thank you for joining us and sharing the remarkable stories and experiences that have shaped your extraordinary life. The journey reminds us that a lifetime of service, adventure, and curiosity can leave behind lessons that inspire generations to come. So, for those that would like to learn more about your work and those who want to get your book, Jim, how can they do that?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. So, oh, yeah, I hope that people will buy our books and read them. I think they can get them on Amazon, and if people want to look it up, I think the easy thing for people to do is to look up Jim Paulk, Paulk, on Google, and there are other podcasts there, there's stories there, and there's all kind of information about my books on Google. So that's probably the easiest thing for people to do, rather than trying to remember names and type those into Amazon, is to go to Google and type in Jim Paulk, Jim, and then Paulk, Jim Paulk, and they can get a lot of information there.
All right, Jim, thank you so much. I really appreciate you for coming. I also want to thank my audience. You guys are the reason why we are able to do this. Make sure to check out Jim's work on Amazon. And if this episode is speaking to you, share it with someone out there who might need to hear this. Thank you all so much, and I love you guys, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Okay. Bye bye.